continue the shiur in Gemara. The Gemara says that when the sin was committed, the eating from the tree of wisdom, then 39 klalot, curses, were meted out by Hashem to the serpent, to Chava, to Adam, and to the earth itself, which gave forth originally fruit or vegetation growth that was not in accordance with the command of Hashem. Hashem had waited until this moment to give out those curses. 10 each and 9 to the earth. We know what the curses were to the serpent. Generally, the transformation took place in the serpent. The fact that he became the angel of death, the fact that he became a serpent, the fact that serpents represent them, eating earth and so on, snake. And Adam has to work, came down to earth, created out of Gan Eden, and so on. Now the Gemara tells us the 10 curses that were given to Chava, meaning to woman. Every woman suffers these 10 items. First, the Gemara says from the Pesachim, the sentence is mentioned in Chumash. First, Hashem said, Harabeh etzvonech veheronech. This means a woman suffers with blood. One is the blood of nida, menstruation. It's physical suffering. Second is the dam betulin, blood of womanhood. In the process of becoming a woman, she has blood dam betulin. That is at the moment of marriage. That's 2. Third curse was itzvonech, which is the curse of the suffering in having to raise children. There's a lot of aggravation that goes into raising children. As they grow, the troubles and toils increase. And these are burdensome primarily to the mother. The father is not home. He doesn't have to witness the different types of aggravations that children give to parents. He sees them rarely. And the mother is constantly with the child or the children. She suffers mainly in raising a child. The fourth is Sa'ad Ha'ibur. That's the suffering during 9 months of pregnancy. Carrying the weight, different types of physical ailments that occur because of the pregnancy. Fifth is the suffering of childbirth, pains during childbirth. Sixth is the fact that a woman yearns for her husband by nature. A husband is one who goes out to work. Many times he is a type that works out of town. He has to leave the home for a period of time. And when he leaves, her heart yearns for him more than he misses her. He's going out, his mind is concerned with his work. She is left alone with that yearning. This is one of the 10 types of suffering of a woman. The next is the fact that when a woman is desirous of her husband, she is generally modest. We don't know if that exists today in this modern generation, but as a rule, to the youth of a woman, she's modest and cannot speak her desire. Man can be active if he wishes. He desires his wife. He can actively possess her. This, though, the Gemara says, let us point out that this is a characteristic of beauty in women. The fact that women possess this sniut is something that makes them superior to men in this respect. These are 7. The last 3, the Gemara says, are first, the fact that she must keep her head covered at all times. She can never, that is her hair, she can never keep her hair uncovered. Second, that she is similar to a prisoner. A woman in tzniut is not allowed to walk out to the marketplace and talk to people in general. She's got to act refined and reserved. The pasuk says, "Kol kivuda bat melach pnima." The kavod of a princess or a queen is to stay indoors. Every Jewish woman is considered a princess or a queen. Therefore, it is incumbent upon her to stay mainly indoors, not to go out and associate too much with people. The last thing is that she is forbidden, in a sense, from everyone. Forbidden from everyone means that she has become tied to a husband, and she can have no more association with any man, no more relations with any man. Of course, the same thing holds true for the husband too. But still, the husband, man, has a right to marry two women. He can have two wives, or at least at the time of the Gemara. Until recently, man was allowed to marry more than one wife. A woman never had this right, never had this privilege. So she was bound. Once she was married, she was bound, and she was forbidden for any other person. But these are the 10. Let's just point out one item. Notice that when the Gemara speaks about these 10 curses of a woman, the 3 in order relating to children were: first, raising children, the suffering of raising children; second, the suffering during pregnancy; and third, childbirth. Now, this is not in order. Natural order is first comes pregnancy, then comes childbirth, and then comes the suffering of raising children. Why do we have the item raising children first before even pregnancy and childbirth? It's a very strong question, but it's answered simply by the fact that we are speaking about the curse being given not to women directly, but to Chava. Now, when did this occur? This curse was given after he sinned with the tree of wisdom. Remember, the Gemara says that Adam and Chava were created on the 6th day, on Friday. On that day they were created. On that same day, Chava gave birth to Cain and Hevel. And then came the sin of childbirth. Afterwards, some 15 days later, followed the murder of Hevel by Cain. So that here, the childbirth then was naturally painless. The pregnancy period was nil. It was the same day. So what came first for Chava was the suffering of raising children. Seeing children grow up, seeing the sorrow, tragedy of having one son kill another. That with her, the first sadness that she found in life was the raising of the children. And then, 130 years later, she first realized what was meant by pregnancy, childbirth, when she gave birth to her first son, afterwards Shit. Therefore, in the case of Chava, we have the suffering of raising children first. Now, in the Midrash, this is the Gemara. The Midrash tells us the same 10 curses, but in the Midrash we find the order differently. In the Midrash we find that first comes pregnancy, then childbirth, then raising children. And there we have it in the proper order. And yet there too it says the curse was given to Chava. The answer is that here we can now understand the machloket. There is a debate among the rabbis of the Gemara and the Midrash. They are both rabbis of the Gemara, of course. The Midrash was simultaneous with the Gemara. The rabbis of the Midrash say that Cain and Hevel were not born the day of creation. They were born after Adam was driven out of Gan Eden, which means after the sin took place. So that, since they were born afterwards, they were on earth already, she had to go through pregnancy and childbirth after this curse was given. And of course, that was the order. Pregnancy, childbirth of Cain and Hevel, and then the suffering with raising the children. That's why it fits perfectly in accordance with the contention of the Midrash that they were born after the sin was committed on earth, and then what she suffered through first was the pregnancy, childbirth, and then raising the children. The Gemara says, speaking about the fact that tzniut in a woman is so important, modesty, that tzniut in a man too is important. A man is supposed to be modest, humble, supposed to have good character, and good character represents his relation to other people, to his fellow man, and in general, his conduct. The Gemara says that we find all these rules in the Torah. The Torah teaches us how to conduct ourselves. But the Gemara says, if the Torah had not been given to the Jews, Chas v'Shalom, there are certain things that we would know without even having to read the Torah. Certain rules of conduct. For example, the rules of tzniut. Tzniut means modesty. Modesty means shyness also, shame, and cleanliness. The Gemara says that we can learn this just by studying the animals that Hashem created, or the creations of Hashem. The cat is a lesson of cleanliness and modesty, other than all other animals. A cat will hide itself when it's got to cleanse itself. A cat will cover its waist. A cat acts with shame and embarrassment, so that we can learn the laws of tzniut, hiding shame, from a cat. The laws of stealing, man can learn from the lowly worm, the ant. Because the ant, the Torah tells us, struggles so hard for its bread to get these tiny grains of wheat to store away for food. Now the Midrash tells us, for example, no ant will ever steal from a second ant. The Midrash tells an actual case, as an example, where an ant was carrying a grain of wheat, dropped it, forgot it temporarily, and left. 100 other ants came by. Each one smelled this grain of wheat and didn't touch it, because they knew that this grain of wheat had been carried by a different ant, belonged to somebody, it wasn't theirs, they would not steal it. Ants know the rule of consideration for their own type, not to steal. So here again the Gemara says, if we would not have been given the Torah, we can learn this rule, this law, this principle, important principle of considering another person's possession, not to steal. Third, the Gemara says, loyalty to one's mate. Loyalty means the person is married to one, not to have relations, chas v'shalom, with another. We can learn this from the dove. Most animals, birds, mate with any other animal or bird. But the dove selects its one mate, and under no conditions will it ever mate with anyone else. Never will a dove have relations with a second bird or a second dove either. The one mate it has selected remains loyal and true for life. So we can learn this principle of loyalty from the dove. We can learn courtesy from the chicken. When the chicken is about to mate, it doesn't forcefully pounce upon its mate. That is the male. The male doesn't come upon a female by force, as do other animals. The male first comes to the female, and persons would note, they would see that it bows first. It says, what it says, of course, the Gemara reveals to us. It says, I will buy you a coat that is up to the ground, as long as I'll cover you entirely, if you are willing. And of course the female is willing with such an offer. Later, the male bends its head down to the ground, and this meaning to say, may my crown come off, the crown of the rooster, may it come off if I have the money to buy it for you, and I don't buy it for you. It means that you'll get it as soon as I get the money. But I give you this promise, I give you my head as security. Once I get the money, you'll have it. This is courtesy. Of course, how reliable it is another point. At least we see the courtesy and kindness of one to the other. These are lessons that humans should learn from animals. If animals have these qualities, then certainly how much more so should humans. And the Gemara says that in the Bet HaMikdash, it is the rule who does the service there? The Kohanim. Kohanim have stipulations. A Kohen must be physically perfect. If he has a deficiency, he cannot serve. If he is tameh, he became impure by touching a rodent or a dead animal, also he cannot serve. The Gemara says that beyond a certain point he cannot serve. But what if up to the hall of the Holy of Holies, if the Kohanim are not there, that is, at present there are no Kohanim who are perfect, then it is permissible to have even those who are physically deficient, physical defect. It is a mitzvah to have Kohanim who are pure. If you haven't got pure ones, you can have those who are tameh. But in no event can you have a Yisrael serve. It still must be a Kohen. The Gemara says, now, the question arises, what if you have only two Kohanim available? One is a Balmum, he has a physical defect, but he is pure. The other is physically perfect, but he is tameh. Which one of the two would we select? For this we have a debate in the Gemara. One rabbi says that we prefer to have the tameh, the Kohen who is physically perfect. Though he is tameh, let him go in. Because the rule is that it is natural that a tameh is asur to serve with the korbanot, the sacrifices in the holy temple. That's for an individual sacrifice. But the korban tzibur, the public sacrifice, when it's brought to the entire Klal Yisrael, a tameh can bring this sacrifice. Whereas a kohen with a defect cannot. So we see that a tameh has something over one who has a defect. The other rabbi says the contrary. The kohen who is tameh is at a loss, because we find that the kohen who has a defect, though he has a physical defect, he is still permitted to eat kodashim. It means holy food for the Bet HaMikdash. Whereas one who is tameh, he's impure, he can't even touch it. So surely he cannot eat it. So in this respect we find that the kohen who has a defect has a quality over the one who is tameh. This is the debate of the Gemara. Of course it shows the importance of the laws of Kohanim, and this is important for the future. Eventually we will have to know these laws, because we will have the Bet HaMikdash again. We will again follow the rules of the Korbanot in the Bet HaMikdash, and the Heira B'Yamenu. In our time we should be zochet to see Mashiach come and the rebuilding the Bet HaMikdash. The Gemara says that a person, the highest level of creation is higher than any of the other three levels, higher than the level below him is animal, 2 levels below is vegetation, the lowest level is earth, stone. Now what makes the person superior to the next level of animal? The power of speech. The fact that he can speak, he is called medaber, this makes him superior. Therefore, since he is blessed as the highest level of creation with speech, a person should guard this power, guard his tongue, and never to allow any word of profanity to come from his mouth. This means not only profanity, but even something which borders upon it, even something which is similar to it, he should avoid, if possible. For example, the Torah teaches us a lesson. The Torah tells us in the very beginning, Hashem said to Noah, take 2 or 7 of each animal in existence onto the ark. Select from the behemah, the animal which is tahor, which is pure, which means which is kasher, and from the behemah, asher einena tahora, the animal which is not tahor. That's a long phrase. Animal which is not tahor. The Torah could have said the animal which is tahor, animal which is tameh. Tameh is 3 letters. Which is not tahor is 8 additional letters. And the Torah is very careful about the letters that it uses. Every letter in the Torah has mountains of laws attached to it. Here the Torah did not skimp. It added 8 additional letters, 3 long words, when it could have used one simple word, tameh. The Torah avoided the use of the word tameh where possible. To use the word which is not pure rather than saying something which is tameh. Now, of course, we do find the word tameh in the Torah later on. It is used. But the fact that the Torah began with this phrase instead of using the word tameh, this proves the Torah teaches us that we should always try to avoid saying something which is not 100% pure. If possible, avoid something which is not clear, pure. Keep your tongue clean. Yemina shows us an example with 2 students of Hillel. One was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Or, the Gemara says this story happened with Rabbi Nakadosh. 2 students, one was Rabbi Yochanan. They spoke about the fact that when you press out grapes to get wine, or when you press out olives to get oil, there are different laws. You have to watch out when you press out the grapes that they should be put into pure kelim that are tahor. But olives, pressing out for oil, you do not require kelim that are tahor, utensils. So these 2 students asked this question. One asked the question, why when we press grapes, do we do it with tahara, purity? When we press olives, we do it with tum'ah. The other student asked, why do we press our grapes with purity, and we do not press olives with purity? So he phrased the word, but he wouldn't have to use the word tameh. So the rabbi said, it was either Hillel, the rabbi, or the Menachem said, I am positive, I'm certain, this student is going to become a very great leader among the Jews. And shortly afterwards, we find Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan became the chief rabbis. Yochanan ben Zakkai was the Nasi. Rabbi Yochanan became the chief rabbi of Eretz Yisrael. Both cases came true. Even it says too that a person should guard his tongue from giving bad news. Even it says that Rav Kana became very ill, and the rabbis got together. They wanted to find out how he was. They sent Rabbi Yeshua to investigate, and they told him, find out and notify us. He came there and found that Rav Kana had passed away already. So he tore his garment, kriya, and he returned to them crying. He was coming back to them, his garment torn, he was crying. So they said to him, he passed away. He said to them, you did it. You said it. You said the bad word. Say the word passed away. I didn't say it at all. One who says this is a fool. This, the Shulchan says, a person should never be the carrier of bad tidings, even when it pertains to a relative, any relative. It is forbidden to notify a relative of the passing of any kind of a relative, including a parent, unless it is to notify a son who must say Kaddish, but no other relative at all. This, of course, would at the same time save the relative having to sit Shiva. If 30 days passes without the relative being notified about the death of one that close, after 30 days there's no requirement of Shiva anymore. It's just 1 hour, approximately an hour, a little less, a short period of time that he has to sit Shiva, and that's enough. So this is how careful a person is supposed to be. The Yemena says, to show us this lesson, that Rav met Rabbi Chia, who was his uncle, and Rabbi Chia asked him, Rabbi Chia's brother married Rabbi Chia's sister, meaning he had a brother from his father and he had a sister from his mother. These were second marriages, so that this brother and sister were not related at all. They could get married. If a man has a son, he marries a woman who has a daughter, first marriages, and they are raised together, they are still allowed to get married to each other. Though they are raised as brother and sister, but they are not related at all, they could get married. This brother and sister were both the parents of Rav. And when Rav came to Rabbi Chia asked him about his brother and sister. He asked him, is your father alive? They had both passed away. So Rav answered, why don't you ask if my mother is alive? Chia asked, is your mother alive? He said, I didn't answer yet whether my father is alive. Chia said to the servant, take my shoes off. The person sits shivering, must take his shoes off. Take my shoes off and bring my clothes to the mikveh. Gemara says this shows, this one sentence teaches us 3 rules. 1, that an Avel, one in the morning, is not allowed to wear shoes. 2, that if the Avel gets this news after 30 days, and there is no 7 days of mourning, it is only 1 day. 1 day of mourning. 3, that this 1 day of mourning doesn't mean a whole day. Even part of the day, the shortest part of the day, is equal to the entire day, which means an hour or even less is enough. That's why he said, take my shoes off, and at the same time, I'm ready to go to the mikveh to wash, which is forbidden for an Abil. These 3 lessons we learn from this one case. Now the Gemara says further. Another case where a man was sent by the rabbis to find out how the price of wheat is on the market. Is it up or down? So this man had learned something about these rules, and when he came back, they asked him, is the price of wheat good on the market? So he said, well, the price of oats are good. So they said to him, you're telling us that the price of oats, this information, go and give to the animals. Animals eat oats. So he said, what did I do wrong? I'm not supposed to tell you bad news about the price of wheat, so I told you something that would refer to it. How else could I have said this? How else could I have answered it? So they said, you could have said, well, the price of wheat was good last year. We would have understood. Or you could have said the price of lentils is good. Something which is food for man, not food for animals. This shows that the rabbis were careful in expressing themselves. The words they used were chosen and selected so carefully before they let out of their mouths. The Gemara says that the time of the Bet HaMikdash, in the time of the Gemara, it was a mitzvah for every Jew, according to the Torah, every Jew had to go to the Bet HaMikdash 3 times a year to bring a korban and to eat from this korban in the Bet HaMikdash. This was a korban chagigah, the holiday korban, which is divided. Part of it is burnt on the mizbeach on the altar, part of it is eaten by the Kohen, and part of it is eaten by the Yisrael who brings it. So this was customary, and every Jew going up, this was called Ola Regel. You had the roads filled with people going to the Bet HaMikdash. When they got there, of course, they were able to receive these korbanot in a wholesale manner. The Kohanim were so busy doling out these parts that they couldn't look carefully to whom they were giving it. There was one goy who figured he'll make profit. He'll go and have a good meal free. He went up with them on Pesach to the Bet HaMikdash, pretended he was a Jew, and they handed him a portion of meat, and he ate it. So when he came back, he said to Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, who was living in the city of the Tzivith, he said to him, I read in your Torah, which says that a goy is not allowed to eat from this korban. Well, the joke is on you, because I eat from this korban the best portion, the best piece of meat. My dad said to him, I don't think that you are so smart, because they're fooling you. You eat for the best meat, they give you the worst portion. You want the best meat and really put it over on them, ask them for the meat close to the tail. That's the best part of the meat. That, of course, is the part that's burnt on the altar. Do they give you the part for the tail? He said, no. He said, when you go there, tell them to give you a part for the tail. This guy went back the next time, and he said, give me the meat that's close to the tail. So the rabbi, the Kohanim there said, what is he saying? This belongs to Hashem, this part. So they said to him, who told you to give you the meat for the part of the tail? So he said, greatest authority of all, you never Torah told me. So they said, if he said that, then that means this was a message for us to investigate this person. They investigated further and found he was a goy, and they put him to death. And they sent a message to Yudah B'Teda saying, Shalom to you, Yudah B'Teda, you are in the Tzivin, and your powers spread so far and wide that it covers Yerushalmi. This was the greatness of the Yehuda. Of course, the question arises, the person who asks, how come that the Yehuda himself did not go to the Bet HaMikdash? He stayed home, all Jews went, why didn't he attend there too? A number of answers are, in the first place, he was very old, and this required going by foot. He couldn't walk that far, he stayed home. Secondly, he did not own any land personally. One who owns land in Eretz Yisrael must go to the Bet HaMikdash. If he does not, he is not required to go, or he cannot go. Third, the Tzivin, according to the Midrash, this city itself is considered outside of Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, anyone living outside of Eretz Yisrael is exempt from this mitzvah. It's required for every Jew living in Eretz Yisrael only to go to the Bet HaMikdash these 3 times, not one outside. Again, interesting to note that the Rambam brings this, and one of the commentaries on the Rambam, Mishnah Melech, asks, I never heard of such a ruling. Where does this come from? The Tosafot says that a person living outside of Eretz Yisrael is exempt from this mitzvah. After all, it's a mitzvah in Torah. Why should he be exempt? It says every Jew is supposed to go to Bet HaMikdash. The later commentaries show proof that this is so, because we find the law of the prayer for rain, which is said at the end after Sukkot. In Israel, of course, it's said after Sukkot, 2 weeks after Sukkot, whereas here we say it much later, December 5th. Now, the Gemara explains why do we say it 2 weeks after Sukkot, because we know that the remotest part of Eretz Yisrael is a 2-week journey from the Bet HaMikdash. Therefore, we allow all Jews to return home, even those who live the furthest away from the Bet HaMikdash, return home before the rains begin. Once the prayer for rain begins, then automatically it starts raining. So to have these travelers go in safety, journey in comfort, without rain, we hold back the prayer for rain till they have reached home. Now, if we would say that people living outside of Eretz Yisrael too are required to come to the Bet HaMikdash, and what's the use of waiting only 14 days for the last Jew in Israel to get back? What about those who live further? They wouldn't be covered by this delay. This proves that it is a fact that only those in Israel are required to come to the Bet HaMikdash on these 3 holidays. The Gemara says those who go on a mission to perform a mitzvah are guarded from heaven. They will not be harmed. No harm will come to them, and they will suffer no loss of any kind. For example, the Torah says that when the Jews went up to the Bet HaMikdash, they left their homes, walked that long distance. They left their homes without anyone to take care of them. Animals roaming around, chickens, others who could be harmed easily. At no time will a wild animal destroy a cow, steer, any one of the flock. At no time will a cat or a weasel attack a chicken. Now, surely, if these items, who are in constant danger of being killed if they're not watched, they are safe, and surely a person is safe. In this pasuk in the Torah we learn that a person in the act of performing the mitzvah is assured safety from heaven. No harm will befall him. We're speaking now about the Jews going to Yerushalmi. The Gemara says, by the way, a statement, how come that in other cities, the Galil, Tiberias, Tzfat, there are special kind of fruit there. Fruit that is so rich, so delicious, that it's unmatched by any country in the world. You do not find such fruit growing in Yerushalmi. How come that you have in Tiberias such healthful spas, warm springs, healthy for a person to bathe in? Why isn't such a blessing, these natural waters, why aren't they found in Yerushalmi? Why not give that blessings to the holy city? The answer is that Hashem made it so. There'd be no special fruit growing in Yerushalmi, no healthy waters, so that a person would never say, I'm going to Yerushalmi on the holidays because at the same time I can get these fruit, I can go to this health spa, bathe in these waters. But the motive of a person should be completely pure, just for the sake of the mitzvah, to bring the korban to the Bet HaMikdash, and nothing else. And the Gemara says in relation to this last statement, the person is not harmed during the performance of the mitzvah. We have a rule that before Pesach, a person must search out every last vestige of chametz in his home or in his property. If there is a pile of stones, rocks, landslide that came upon a person's property, and he knows that under that landslide there is a particle of bread, some chametz, he's got to search out that chametz. But if there is any danger, he might stick his hand into this pile of stones. There might be a snake lurking there, then he is free. He is not required to clean out that chametz if there is danger. So the Gemara asks, how could this person be harmed by the snake? We just said that a person in the act of performing a mitzvah is guarded from heaven against any harm. no harm can befall him. Why should he be in danger of the snake? The Gemara says because perhaps he may have dropped a needle or a coin there under that pile of stones. And putting his hand in, he'll have a mind, I'll look for that piece of bread, but I'll also look for that coin or a little item of property that I have. Therefore, his kavanah will not be that pure. In a case like that, it is not considered a pure performance of the mitzvah. He will not be protected. The Gemara asks, is that so? We have, the Gemara says the Ferush, clearly. This is a very interesting statement. The Gemara says that a person who gets into the habit of giving tzedakah regularly, but aside from this, every day he takes $1 or a coin. We use the term dollar here. The person takes a certain sum of money each day and says, I give this sum to tzedakah on condition that my children should live. No harm should happen to them. Or, I give this sum of money on condition that I receive Gan Eden. I be assured of having Gan Eden. The person who does this, the Gemara says, is a complete tzadik. Now here we have proof. His kavanah is not pure. The mitzvah is give charity. He is giving charity. But at the same time he has two motives involved. One, to give the poor man a charity. Second, for his own, whether it's selfish gain or whatever it is, it's still his own personal gain. Here it's his personal gain that is in the same motive, the same act. But yet we find that the Gemara says this person is a complete tzaddik. The mitzvah is perfect. So why do we say here that if he searches for this chametz, the mitzvah is not pure because he may have a mind that he wants to find a coin to? The Gemara answers that there is a difference. It's not that his motive would be wrong. It's that when we say that a person is guarded from heaven against any harm in the act of mitzvah, this means if there is a possibility of harm befalling him. Only a possibility. But if there is a definite case of danger prevalent, then he will not be guarded from heaven. A person is not permitted to place himself in open jeopardy when performing a mitzvah. This the Gemara shows the case of Shmuel HaNavi. Hashem said to Shmuel, go to King David and anoint him as king. This means that he was going there to perform the mitzvah, command of Hashem. Shmuel said to Hashem, I cannot go, it's dangerous. King Shaul hears about this, he'll kill me. How could he say that? Doing a mitzvah, he's guarded. Hashem himself told him to go. But Hashem said to him, right, you cannot go that way, go in a roundabout way with carrying of an animal as a sacrifice, which would take off suspicion from you. We see proof from here that if there is definite danger, there is no protection from heaven for the person doing the mitzvah. That's why in the case of the pile of stones, if there's a possibility of a snake, which means a snake is usually there, then he is exempt and freed from the performance of the mitzvah of searching for the chametz. The Gemara says that Rav was the chief rabbi of the yeshiva, and he was asked by his students, what do you say about students coming to the yeshiva, getting up very early in the morning before light, or coming to night classes much after dark, when it's dangerous to go in the streets, or to go through the roads? There's definitely danger. You say that it is permissible. Should they go to the yeshiva? Rav answered, let them come. I take it upon myself, on my throat should come any trouble that should befall them. So certain am I that going to perform the mitzvah, they are 100% safe. They said, what about going home afterwards? He said, home I cannot guarantee, because after the study is over, the mitzvah is finished. Coming here, you can definitely do it. But Arizal said stronger about Hitbodedut, to go out into the field and have Hitbodedut. Arizal said, if I'd have a small child, a son, I'd send him into the forest where the wildest animals are, and I would say, go have Hitbodedut there, because no danger can befall, no harm can befall a person who is going to have it want to do it. It shows the high degree of Kedusha. The Yonah says that Rabbi Shimon HaAmsuni was one of the very great rabbis at the time of Rabbi Akiva. And he set about performing a task that was historic. He said that every word in the Torah has infinite depth, because just as Hashem is infinite, every part of Hashem, Kaviyachol, is infinite too. The word of Hashem is Hashem, and therefore Hashem's words too are infinite in depth. The Torah is all the words of Hashem. Therefore every word in the Torah is so deep that a person can study it for a lifetime and never reach the tiniest fraction of the true depth of that word. As for example, we find the deepest sefer out is the Tikuney Zohar, and the Tikuney Zohar consists of 70 chapters on only one word of the Chumash, the Torah, Bereshit. You can have a whole Tikuney Zohar on the next word also, and so on. And even the Tikuney Zohar itself, as deep as it is, with the 70 chapters, covers only a certain amount of that word. There is much more than just that. Rabbi Shimon HaAmsuni said there is one word in the Torah that is used more often than any other word, and yet this word seems to be superfluous, redundant. That is, it has no meaning, it has no bearing on a sentence, and yet it is found so often. This is the word et. Et Aleph Taf. For example, Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning Hashem created et Hashemayim, the heavens, the et haaretz, and the earth. Well, you cannot say that et means the, because you say et Hashemayim, the heavens. Ha is the, Shemayim heaven, Hashemayim the heaven. What does et mean? The et haaretz, and so on. What is this word that has no meaning, doesn't change a sentence, has no effect on a sentence, and yet, despite this, it is found so often? When we say that every single word of the Torah has infinite meaning, Rabbi Shimon HaAmsuni set out, beginning the Chumash, from beginning to end, to show every place where the word et is found, there is a definite message involved. And each word et that he came to, he showed this word et means to teach us something additional. Just as, for example, in the first sentence, Bereshit, in the beginning, bara Menachem Hashem created et Hashemayim. Shemayim means the heavens. The heavens, right. Et means to add. to teach us that in addition to the heaven, everything from beginning to end that was found in the heavens was created at the same time. V'yetaris, the earth, everything in the earth too. Not that it was created during the 6 days of creation. In the beginning, the very first moment, everything in the heavens, on the earth, were created simultaneously. Hashem made them serve their purpose during the 6 days of creation. So this word et, just as in that first sentence, Rabbi Shimon Harsuni went on methodically, carefully, every word et he came to, he interpreted and showed the deep meaning involved. And always, the et means to add much more than we would think. What is this word et that is so strange? It has no meaning, and yet it includes so much. And why is it called et? The word et consists of 2 letters. First letter of the alphabet and the last letter, aleph and taf, which means that this is all-inclusive, beginning to end. Everything possible is added in this one word et. So the Gemara says that he continued on. Every time he came to the word et, he would add a lesson until he came to one pasuk and he stopped short. He came to the pasuk which says, Et Hashem Elokecha Tira. You should fear Hashem. It doesn't say Hashem Elokecha Tira, fear Hashem. It says Et Hashem Elokecha Tira. You should fear Hashem. So he stopped. He said, this is the limit. Here I give up. Because every place you add something of equal quality or more. How can you add something that is equal to Hashem? Chas v'shalom, more. So he said, here I must give up. Here I have come to a point where I find that I have been disproven. I maintained always that the word et adds something, teaches us something. Why? Because I wanted to show that every word of the Torah is so meaningful and so deep. This was my purpose. Now I must give up. So the student said to him, Rabbi, but what's going to happen to all the et that you said until now? What will happen to them? If you're going to stop now, people will say you were wrong before too. All your ets are worthless. He said, if people will say that, they're welcome to it. Because just as I have until now received reward for every derashah, every explanation I gave for et, my reward is the fact that I showed the holiness and depth of the Torah of every smallest word. That's how I will now receive reward for not giving it derashah, for not explaining this et. To show my respect for Hashem is so great, but here I refuse to offer any explanation whatsoever. And this is why he stopped. The question is, of course, why didn't he stop before? This pasuk et Hashem Elokecha Tira is in the latter part of the Chumash. Before this pasuk, you have another pasuk which says, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. You should love Hashem. Et Hashem. Why did he? How come there he did accept that word et to add? Here he didn't. There he did explain the et to add something, as we'll soon see. Here he did not. What is the difference? Yes, we'll see shortly. First, what happened to this case? He stopped right here, and he said, that's enough, I don't go any further. Later, Rabbi Akiva came, the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva came, and he said, I will explain this et. What can you add to this pasuk? Fear Hashem? What can you add that is equal, that requires as much fear? A Talmid Chacham. A Chacham, a rabbi, is supposed to be accorded the same fear and respect as you have for Hashem. And this is what the halacha is. Torah says that the same fear that a person has for Hashem, he must have for a Chacham. Now, what is there seems to be a debate here, controversy. And again, the question is, Why did Rabbi Shimon HaAmsuni accept the word et in the first pasuk? Yahavta et Hashem Elokecha, you should love Hashem. There he did say these words: love Hashem and equally love a chacham. Why? Because this we can understand. To give forth ahava for a chacham, that's a special mitzvah. But to say fear a chacham, you can't use that word fear as you fear Hashem. In case of fearing Hashem, you fear the punishment that Hashem can mete out. There is Gehinom, there is death. Chas v'shalom. Hashem can give a person any kind of punishment. By a chacham, what punishment can you expect? You get a chacham who's very small, he's lightweight, he can hardly lift his hands. What can he do to hurt you? How can you compare the fear of a chacham who is human to fear of Hashem above? Therefore, by ahava, we could say that, but not by yir'ah, by fear. Rabbi Akiva came and said, there is to be a fear of a chacham too, because we find that punishment is equal and even surpasses. We always say et means to add even more. Greater is the fear of a chacham than the fear of Hashem. Why? Because of this very reason, because of punishment. The Zohar Kadosh tells us that when Yeravam ben Nevat, first king of the 10 tribes of Israel, who tore the Jews away from the grandson of King David, the son of King Shlomo, he divided the Jews into 2 sections. And how did he do it? He taught them to worship idols so they would not have to go to the Beit HaMikdash, to the Holy Temple. So the prophet Ado came to warn him. He was standing at a mizbeach, at an altar, offering a sacrifice to this idol. Prophet Ado warned him, stop this idol worship, or Hashem will tear the kingdom away from you. Yeravam heard that, so he raised his hand to strike this prophet. Immediately, his hand shrank, it shriveled up. He cried out in pain, until Ado the prophet prayed for him, and his hand was cured. Returned to normal. Zohar Kadosh says, notice the difference in punishment. Here he was using both hands for the sake of offering the sacrifice to this idol. Whom was he rebelling against? Hashem. He showed no fear of Hashem. In worshipping the idols, did he receive a punishment immediately? His hands remained normal. The moment he dared to raise his hands to the Navi, to the prophet, his hand shriveled immediately, which shows that Hashem is much more particular about the kavod, the respect for a tzadik, than the respect for Hashem. Hashem is much quicker to punish those who show disrespect to a tzadik, even than those who show disrespect to Hashem. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva said, Yir'ah, fear Hashem, fear also a chacham, because the punishment there is the same and even more. Plus the fact that we find many times in the Gemara that when a tzaddik was slighted, something was done wrong, the tzaddikim in the Gemara would just look at the person and he would have instant death. He would turn into a pile of bones. We do find this case of punishment in the case of a Talmid Chacham too. Now, this is sort of off topic, and yet it's on topic. In other words, it's not written anywhere. It's said in a very light vein, not seriously, but the moral here is a serious one. There are some who explain this in a lighter vein to mean Rabbi Shimon HaAmsuni. If you notice the words in the Gemara would fit perfectly. Rabbi Shimon HaAmsuni was teaching his students, meaning he was the rabbi of that community. He was teaching them the Torah very deeply, and he explained, he interpreted the words of the Torah. Every time he came to it, he explained it and interpreted it. This was the duty of a rabbi. And he came to the pasuk which said, respect, fear Hashem. And the only thing you're going to add there is the chacham, the rabbi. He stopped. Why did he stop? because he figured if I tell them, fear a chacham, whom am I speaking about? Myself. That's not nice. It's embarrassing. And they will say, this is not really true. He means it for his own sake. He wants to get more kavod. He wants us to fear him so that we won't do anything against his wishes. So they said to him, why did you stop? He said, because just as I receive reward for all the other it that I explained, what's my reward? My wages. I receive wages as a rabbi to teach Torah. That's how I will receive reward for stopping here. I say this the way I want to explain it, I'm liable to be fired. This rabbi is teaching us Torah for his own kavod. So by stopping here, I'll continue to receive wages. That's why I stopped. Notice the Gemara says, until Rabbi Akiva came. You never find that. Usually say Rabbi Akiva says, until Rabbi Akiva came and taught. Rabbi Akiva was a rabbi of a different city. He came to the city of Rabbi Shimon Amsuni. This was not his shul. He wasn't receiving wages here. He was free to speak. He said, Rabotai, what your rabbi cannot say, I'll tell you. The rule is, the pasuk means to teach us, you must fear and respect a rabbi. I'm not afraid of being fired by you. I can speak openly, bravely, courageously. What your rabbi couldn't say, I'll say for him. Now, if you have any complaints, you have it to me. But you must obey this rule henceforth. You must know that, above all, respect your rabbi. As we said, this is in a light vein, and the words fit in the Gemara, but the moral of the lesson is a very true one, because we find that, especially in modern times, the kavod Torah has fallen. Many shuls today, where rabbis are hired, and instead of receiving the kavod of Torah, as they should, the respect that is due a rabbi, they are considered employees. They have a shemesh, they have a caretaker, they have a rabbi. Each one is an employee doing his duty. If he fulfills his duty according to the wishes of the board of directors, according to the officers of the knis, good. If not, they have a right to fire him. If he says anything that is against their ideas, their principles, if he's too orthodox for them, or he dictates certain principles of Torah which they don't agree with, they have the freedom of firing him and getting a different employee rabbi who will coincide with their ideas. This is what the Torah warns us. You cannot leave Hashem. You cannot disagree with Hashem. You must show fear and respect. When your rabbi says, this is the halacha, this is the din, and it's difficult for you to find out, here's a new law that you thought you were not restricted by, you can't say, well, I have a simple solution. I'll go to a different rabbi, or I'll have a different rabbi come here. We can release this one. We can always get another one for the price we pay. This is not a question of price. A rabbi is not taken through wages. The wages that are paid are not paid for the Torah he teaches. The respect, the obedience is through the law of Torah, just as the respect for Hashem. Wages are a separate item. It's a matter of time being expended, and not the Torah that is being taught. And this is what Rabbi Akiva taught us, that above all, the fear, the respect for a chacham should be no less than the fear and respect for Hashem. We have learned that a person who shows this respect to a rabbi is given the greatest reward. The greatest nachat a person can receive in life is to see his children going on the right path of Torah. A person through this can be zocheh to have children who become Talmidei Chachamim, to have his daughters married Talmidei Chachamim, that he himself can become a Talmid Chacham through this. One who shows ahavah, love and yirah, respect for a Talmid Chacham, the Gemara says, zocheh, that his children become Talmidei Chachamim, and he himself too will develop in Torah. Gemara says there are many innovations that come into this world. We note that former generations were devoid of certain modern inventions. It seems that generations progress, science advances, and there's a new standard of living with inventions that make life easier. And this would appear as though the mentality of man has advanced. Of course, we are taught many times that this is not so. Every invention that exists has already been prepared in heaven, and there's a date set on every one of them as to when this invention shall be revealed to the world. When that date comes, Hashem places this thought into the mind of certain scientists or inventors, and it is then revealed to the world. Not because they are wiser. On the contrary, the wisdom has dwindled. The wise men of the past were far superior in mentality and wisdom than the wise men of the present. But one thing has advanced, and that is ga'ava, conceit. We find that the wise men of today, scientists of today, are that conceited that when they come out with a discovery or an invention, they pride themselves and look for a tremendous amount of kavod, of honor from the public. Therefore, the Gemara tells us, very interestingly, Rabbi Arizal dwells on this point a lot, that if we observe closely, go back to practically all of the inventions in the past, and we'll notice that all inventors or discoverers have been trapped and destroyed by their own inventions. The Gemara says that, for example, the one who carves out a special type of ladle, spoon, and he prides himself, he has invented a new type of spoon. The result is that he will, with his spoon, he will eat hot soup and he'll burn his tongue. Blame it on a spoon. The one who has invented a type of chain for prisoners, a leg chain, leg irons, or let's say even for animals, a bear trap. He invented a new type of trap to capture an animal. This person will be caught up in his own trap. The one that invented new types of weapons, gunpowder and so on, that person will die through his own discovery, his own invention. We find that in the recent past too, as Rabbi Nachman points out, the one that discovered electricity was destroyed by it. Franklin, the one that discovered America, died because of it. All those famous inventors and discoverers were caught and destroyed through their own desire for kavod. That which they thought brought them kavod instead turned out to be their doom. So that the Gemara says, if a person is zocheh, that to him is given the privilege of revealing something which is already in existence in heaven, he should give the credit where it is due, to heaven, to Hashem, not to feel too proud, not to feel that it was his ability, his wisdom, his power that did it. It is Hashem who gives advice and knowledge to a person, and reveals it through a person. If a person is zocheh to understand that thoroughly, then he will be safe, and his own creation will not destroy him, because the kavod will return back to its origin, to Hashem. The Gemara says that people are generally invited out to feasts, parties, to occasions. The Gemara warns that a Talmid Chacham, a learned person, should beware never to attend a banquet or a feast, a luncheon that is not a sudat mitzvah, a banquet of a mitzvah. It is forbidden for a Talmid Chacham to go to an ordinary luncheon. If it is sudat mitzvah, for example, a brit milah, a bar mitzvah, a wedding where there's a mitzvah involved, then he should go to attend that lunch, that feast. Otherwise, he should not attend it. The Gemara says, one that is not a sudat mitzvah, well, for example, what? In other words, one that is the opposite of sudat mitzvah. Which one, for example? We're not speaking about unkosher food, naturally. Speaking about a feast that in itself, the entire concept of the feast is not a mitzvah. The Gemara answers, for example, a wedding where the bride is the daughter of a Kohen and the groom is a Yisrael. In Yachas, in importance, the Kohen stands much higher than a Yisrael. Here, they are combining, merging one of importance with one of much lower importance. This is not a mitzvah. You go to a wedding where the daughter of a Kohen is marrying a Yisrael, this is a sudah that is not a mitzvah. Or, where the daughter of a Talmid Chacham comes from an important family, is marrying an Am Ha'aretz, an illiterate, a boor, this is a sudah that is not a mitzvah, and a Talmid Chacham should not accept an invitation to this sudah, to this wedding. You notice, Rabbi Yochanan said, that in the case of a Bat Kohen, the daughter of a Kohen who marries a Yisrael, know that this match will not end successfully. It will not prove to be successful. What will happen? As the pasuk says, that the daughter of a Kohen, speaking about the fact that as while she is a daughter of a Kohen, she can eat terumah. It's the holy food that is given to a Kohen. Once she becomes married, she cannot eat terumah anymore. But if she becomes a widow or divorced, or she has no children, then she can return to become a daughter of a Kohen. This is what will happen in a case like that, chas v'shalom. She marries a Yisrael, the result will be that she will either become divorced, widowed, or have no children, chas v'shalom. The Gemara asks, but Rabbi Yochanan himself said, person wants to become wealthy, attach yourself to the family of Aharon, which means the Kohanim. Marry the daughter of a Kohen, and you become wealthy, which means it's a successful marriage. Why does he say here that this will end in failure? The Gemara answers, if he is a Talmid Chacham and he marries a daughter of a Kohen, this will be successful in every respect to become wealthy. But if he is an Am Ha'aretz, and then he marries the daughter of a Kohen, this will end in failure. This is that Yehoshua was a Yisrael. He married the daughter of a Kohen, and he became sick, ill immediately. So he said, what's wrong? Aharon, my Kohen, is not satisfied with me. He doesn't want me to become attached to his family, to his children. Immediately he became cured, to show that the illness was not due to this match. The Gemara says that another rabbi married the daughter of a Kohen. He was ochet to have 2 children who became very great rabbis. The Papa said, the reason I became rich is because I married the daughter of a Kohen. Now the Gemara says, as far as marriages are concerned, what advice are we given? Looking for a marriage. Those who are married, of course, can judge by this if they did right. Those who are not married can take this advice. The Gemara says, first of all, above all, a person should sell everything he has in order to be zocher to marry the daughter of a Talmid Chacham, a learned person, bin Torah. That's the most important thing of all. Because this will determine the status of his children if he passes away, or if he has to leave town, then the children are left with the mother alone. He knows they will not be neglected as far as religion and Torah is concerned. If he marries the daughter of an Am Haaretz, the woe is to those children who have that kind of a mother to take care of them alone. This should be his first concern. Be certain to marry the daughter of a Talmid Chacham, above all else. This resembles one who marries the daughter of a Talmid Chacham. As the Gemara says, a person should sell everything he has in order to do that. At the same time, a person should sell everything he has. This means make every sacrifice possible, and be sure to marry off your daughter to a Talmid Chacham also, because then this match, this mating, is similar to the merging of a rich vine of grapes to another vine of grapes. This is something that's acceptable and good. If a person marries the daughter of an Am Haaretz, this is like a rich vine of grapes merging with a thorn bush. This is something that's very unacceptable. Now, we have to understand a vital point here. It's an interesting point. The Gemara tells us two things elsewhere. One, that when a person marries, he seeks to marry, one thing he should look for is, in his bride, is the background, the family, especially the brothers of the bride. Of course, the Gemara says the children will generally take after the mother's brothers. So that person marrying should always see that the mother's brothers are learned people, religious, well-educated, because his children will take after them. At the same time, the Gemara tells us that in order to show people that Torah is something you have to strive for, you cannot get it without working for it, you cannot inherit it. A king inherits the crown. A king's son becomes a king automatically after him. A Kohen inherits the importance of the crown of Kehuna. But Torah cannot be inherited. You cannot leave Torah as a bequest to children. They must strive for it. Therefore, the Gemara says, invariably, we find that somehow the children of a Talmid Chacham are not Talmidei Chachamim. They themselves are not that learned. Why? To show us, because if they were, people would say, well, the only way to have Torah knowledge is to have a father who is a Ben Torah, Talmid Chacham. If the person's father is not a Talmid Chacham, he has no hope. So therefore, usually the sons of Talmidei Chachamim are not Talmidei Chachamim themselves, to show that Torah is not inherited. Now, according to these two statements we just said, a person, we said, should seek out the daughter of a Talmid Chacham. Marry only the daughter of a learned person. But her father is a Talmid Chacham, and that means, as we said, generally he will have sons who are not Talmidei Chachamim. Sons who are Am Haaretz. That means that this daughter of a Talmid Chacham is going to have brothers who are Am Haaretz. How could you marry her if your children will take after her brothers? So there is a risk here, a danger that is so great. What is the use of marrying the daughter of a Talmid Chacham if you are endangering placing your children in jeopardy? Therefore, this is what the Gemara means. If your kavanah is, for the sake of the mitzvah, you're marrying her, when you had the opportunity to marry the daughter of an Am Haaretz, the daughter of a wealthy man, you could have married for money, for looks, the Gemara says, for other physical reasons. But you wanted to marry one that comes from the right upbringing, brought up by a house that is religious and learned. This mitzvah is so great that it will overshadow all other threats. You will not be in danger even of having your children take after her brothers if they are not Talmidei Chachamim. This is the reward for it. The mitzvah of seeking out daughter of a Talmid Chacham because you want the purity in your bride of knowledge, of upbringing your Torah. This will protect you even from that. We said the majority of children take after the brothers of the bride. This will not be one of the majority. This will be the minority because he was a chet through your covenant of mitzvah. Now, we'll explain later what is meant by the opposite of a Talmid Chacham. First, the Gemara tells us there are so many people in the world and there are so few Talmidei Chachamim. Not everyone can be Zohar, get the daughter of a Talmid Chacham, a big rabbi. Just a few big rabbis in the world. They have just a few daughters. And there are millions of people who have daughters who have to marry them, who want to get married. That is, sons that want to get married. You can't divide these few to so many that are in need. What should a person do? The Gemara says this is the advice for one who is going to get married. First, you try to find the daughter of a Talmid Chacham. If you succeed, good. If not, take the next best. The next best is the leaders leading the outstanding people of that generation. In other words, they are not that learned, they're not that great and not as big as Yaacov learned, but they are leading people in the generation recognized as leaders. They are next in line to these Talmidei Chachamim. If there are only a few leaders and they do not have any daughters available, then the next best is the heads of the Knis, the high officials of the Knis. That's a strange statement. We'll explain that soon. We'll shed light upon that. In other words, the high officers. If he cannot find a daughter among these, next one is to take the daughter of the one that collects tzedakah, one who goes out collecting tzedakah not for himself, chas v'shalom, one who works for the sake of yeshivot without pay, naturally. His devotion is raising money for charity. This is so big a mitzvah that he is next in line. His daughter should be sought out after these. If there too he does not find a daughter among them, then he should marry the daughter of those who teach children, teachers in yeshivot, Talmud Torah, who teach children because they are next in line. But under no condition should he marry a daughter of an Haaretz, because that is the same as marrying an animal. Which means, the Gemara says, the Haaretz is compared to, similar to a rodent. It's the lowest form of life. And the daughter of an Haaretz is like an animal. Imagine being married to living with an animal. Now, to explain this, these harsh statements about Haaretz. What is this Haaretz who is considered so poisonous? The word Haaretz regularly is accepted as an illiterate, one who does not study Torah. Talmid Chacham, one who is learned in Torah. Haaretz, one who is illiterate. He hasn't studied. A person who hasn't studied Torah, is he that bad, chas v'shalom, to be called a rodent? His daughter is an animal? It's difficult to understand that. And therefore, the Gemara itself asks that question. What is an Haaretz? And there is a debate among the rabbis of the Gemara. One says an Haaretz is one that does not even bother to say Kriyat Shema morning and night. He doesn't sully at all. So in other words, he lives like an animal. He gets up in the morning, instead of sullying first and then going to eat, He gets up and he eats. This is the life of an animal. Another rabbi says one who is that low, he does not put on tefillin. Another one says he doesn't wear tzitzit. Another one says he doesn't have the mezuzah on his doors. Finally, last rabbi says, and this is the one that is accepted mostly, even one who is learned, very learned in Torah, but he does not serve a Talmid Chacham, he does not serve a rabbi, meaning he does not have faith in rabbis, he doesn't have faith in tzadikim, that person is an Amharitz. Now, Rabbi Nachman says that to prove this point is so true. One who does not have emunah in a tzadik, as the pasuk in the Torah says, "Vayaminu b'Hashem Moshe Avdo." Faith in Hashem and in Moshe Rabbeinu was considered as one. You cannot have one without the other. So one who does not have emunah in tzadikim, he is an Amharitz. Therefore, the Yemena uses the word lo shimei. She does not serve a rabbi, does not serve a tzadik, because we see these two are direct opposites. Talmid Chacham doesn't say Chacham, it says Talmid Chacham. He is good, he is a student of a Chacham. Student he serves. Amharitz must be the opposite. He's not the student of a Chacham. He does not serve a Chacham, he does not believe in Chachamim. This is what's meant by Amharitz. Therefore, when we say that a person has not learned Torah, he is not a literate, he's not educated in Torah, that does not make him an Amharitz. So we said before that the leaders of the Knis are important. We mean to say not that they are more learned, not that a person is more learned, but that person is more Mikayem, he fulfills the mitzvot more. A very rich person who is not learned is not an Amharitz if he uses his money to support Torah. Then he is the same as Talmid Chacham. So the daughter of an Amharitz means not the daughter of an illiterate. This illiterate or not learned person could be as great as a Talmid Chacham because he does serve as an official in the Knis. He does use his money for purposes of Torah. He does obey and fulfill the mitzvot of Torah as far as selling tefillin, tzitzit, mezuzah. He has emunah and tzadikim, though he cannot learn that well. And therefore, too, this would shed light on the word Bat Talmid Chacham. A person should sell all he has and marry the daughter of a Talmid Chacham. What is meant by that? Does that mean that the daughter of one who is not learned is not fit to marry? What does Bat Talmid Chacham mean? We said that the point is that she will bring up her children properly. So she could be the daughter of an illiterate, but she is called the daughter of a Talmid Chacham because it means that she was raised. She went to Bet Yaakov, for example. She went to Talmud Torah. She learned Torah. She is the daughter, meaning, just like we say a Ben Torah. One who studies Torah is called a son of Torah. She's a daughter of a Talmid Chacham, meaning that she has fulfilled her requirements in the study of Torah. She was brought up in a religious manner, a learned manner, and therefore she too can classify as the daughter of a Talmid Chacham. This is what's meant by Talmid Chacham and Amharitz. To avoid contact with the Amharitz, doesn't have this proper faith, and to associate himself only with Talmidei Chachamim, those who learn Torah, or those who support Torah, or those who have emunah in Torah and fulfill the mitzvot of the Torah. But the Amharitz is considered the same as a rodent. His daughter is considered the same as an animal, because there is no semblance of Torah at all. If this daughter of an Amharitz means one who is brought up in the same manner. She is brought up in a manner where she does not fulfill the mitzvot of Torah. She never sees the mitzvah of tzitzit, tefillin, mezuzah, or selling, and she will mark this. Therefore, we can understand that she'll bring up her children in the same manner. One who marries her will jeopardize the religious upbringing of his own children. That's why the Torah says, the Yemena says, at all costs, avoid the risk, the danger of marrying a Bat Amharitz, daughter of one, meaning one who was brought up in that manner. At all costs, sell whatever you have possible and marry the daughter of a Talmid Chacham. By the same token, a person, when we say a person should sell whatever he has and marry off his daughter to a Talmid Chacham, this means even though that person is not learned, but he himself is one who fulfills these mitzvot. He wants his daughter to continue to live a religious life, and the only solution to that is to marry off his daughter to one who is a Talmid Chacham. This is considered a compatible match, a perfect match, like the vine of a grape merging with another one. This is a pure and perfect match. This is what a person should strive for, both for himself and for his daughter's mate. Hashem.